I've seen a lot of videos on TikTok and social media, kind of like inspirational kind of videos, like David Goggins a lot, and some Conor McGregor too, because I've been watching a lot of UFC fighters talk. I don't watch. Well, I've watched a lot of the fights too, highlights. I've never watched a live fight, but well, maybe I have. Maybe I've watched a few live fights, but mostly I just watch UFC highlights. And reason I'm talking about this is because McGregor, he sounds a lot like a lot of other people online who aren't UFC fighters, but they've like accomplished their goals, their dreams. And McGregor, when he does talk like this, it's very wholesome. He's like, if you have the courage enough to think something and speak it, then it will happen. And he talks about the law of attraction too, and like belief. You have to believe in yourself. You have to have the confidence that it will happen, or else it won't happen. And I keep thinking about this. Like, I have the confidence, I have the belief that I could lead incredibly high level conversations about the world. Like, for example, I think about this all the time. Like, the biggest problem in the world is that, or at least, let me get this out and then I'll think about it more. Okay. So, all the countries in the world, all the richest countries in the world spend maybe not a majority, but a huge amount of money, a huge amount of time, energy, resources building weapons to keep other countries in check. Now, I understand this. From America's perspective, the only way to be like the disciplinarian of the world, to be respected, is to have the biggest stick. I've heard this. Um, it's like power is just having a bigger stick than the other guy or whatever. It's like, if I have a better weapon than you, you're not going to try and fight me because it'd be stupid. So if that's the case, then hopefully we can keep peace throughout the world. However, it would be a lot better if everyone could just agree to not try and murder each other. I know that sounds very difficult, and that's very, very difficult, because I'm not like living in fantasy world, right? I get it. When a country is on the brink of starvation and death, and their choices are either to die, to sit down and die, or to invade a country next door, that's a different story. But I truly believe if we could get every world leader in the same room and I could talk to them until God knows, who knows how long. Maybe if I could be locked in a room with them until they agreed on something, then I could get them to say, all right, everyone here, we all know that we all spend ridiculous amounts of money making weapons. Now, I'm not saying this is going to be easy or even possible, but it might be possible. So I think we owe the possibility some thinking, all right? We owe the possibility some consideration. What if every country stopped producing weapons that are made to hurt other humans? I get it. We need weapons to protect from bears and, maybe whatever other animals. I don't we need weapons to fight bears, to do certain things. And maybe there are countries who just aren't going to agree with this. So we still need some weapons. However, let's say we could get every country to stop building weapons, and maybe even we could all like put our weapons in Antarctica in a giant lockbox that has like an alarm on it, so if anyone goes there it just blows up or something. I don't know. No, we wouldn't do that, because then anyway. So let's say I could get all the world leaders into this room and say, all right, it is possible. I don't know that it will happen, but it is possible that all of us, everyone in this room, every country on the face of the earth, could stop focusing so much on war and focus on helping people. All right. I believe this in my entire soul, that if you invest in people's happiness, the positive effects will just ripple throughout the entire world, like exponentially. All right. So let's say, I get Kim Jong-un and President Trump and all the Chinese leader, Russian leader, all the European leaders, and we get them in the same room and we say, all right, I'm not just going to tell you guys, oh, you all have to surrender your weapons. Nobody's going to do that. Let me ask you honestly, what would it take for you as a country to say, I feel safe enough to give up all my weapons? Maybe there's nothing that can make you do that, right? Maybe you're North Korea and you're like, oh, there's nothing you people could say or convince me or show me that would make me give up all my weapons. All right, you might say that. But what if you could see evidence that every other country on the planet has given up their weapons? And I know that evidence would be hard to believe because, they could just edit it or make more weapons after. But it's possible, let's say it could happen. What the fuck is stopping us? It could happen if everyone in the world just said, we're going to stop making weapons in case of a nuclear war. Maybe that would make nuclear war less likely to happen. I mean, it probably would make it less likely to happen, but what would it take? Let's say from Trump's perspective, right? As the American president, it would be a horrible thing to just surrender all your weapons, right? No. But what would it take, man? What would it take to tell all the countries in the world to just say, all right, we are all going to treat each other like family. When this country needs help, we help. When that country needs help, we help. Anyone who doesn't agree to these conditions of whatever our conditions are going to be, then we won't help them when the time comes that they need help. I don't know how else it could be possible. I mean, I don't have a huge... I mean, I've got a pretty deep understanding of politics compared to the average person, right? I understand the need for a huge military. I understand America's position as a powerhouse of the world because of geographic location, military spending, and just the idea of America, I feel like, is a strong idea across the globe. But let's talk about from Trump's point of view. What would Trump have to see to stop nuclear weapons testing and all that stuff? I don't know that it is possible, unfortunately. Like, I'm thinking about it like this, right? No matter what happens with the Earth, there's going to be people who train to fight. They're going to be UFC fighters, MMA fighters, whatever. And no matter how much we say, all right, everyone, there's no reason to fight. We can all just be smart and logical and do things the right ways. We don't need to hurt each other. We don't need to fight. There's no reason to train MMA or UFC. There's always going to be people training UFC and MMA, even if you're not supposed to. Like, some people just love that. But do people really love creating weapons of mass destruction? I mean, at what point do people lose their humanity? Like, if somebody told me, Daniel, we need you to make a bomb with the potential to murder millions of people in a day, and a human just says, okay, I'll do that for you. I mean, what amount of money would make that worth it to you? I understand that not everyone cares about people so much, but I mean, just saying, like, I will make you this weapon that will kill 1 million people in seconds. I mean, how does somebody agree to do that? Like, what could possibly... I try to treat everyone with respect when I can, There are times where people are disrespectful, and then all goes out the window. I'm as disrespectful as it gets once someone else is disrespectful. But when a person is respectful in every situation I've ever been in with them, then I treat them with a lot of respect. And to me, I just can't... I wish I could look at this conversation as like a ghost, just looking at this conversation where let's say there's this genius guy who's capable of making the bombs for Hiroshima and Nagasaki, right? The atomic bombs. And, the government is asking him, sir, we need you to make a bomb that can level a country. We need you to make a bomb that will kill millions of people. And the guy is just like, okay, I'll do that for you. I know I just said this, but at what point do we blame the people whose fault it actually is? Like, the U.S. couldn't have done this without the guy who made the atomic bomb. So it's almost, to me, like it's 51% the guy's fault who created the weapon and 49% everyone else's fault. At the very least, it has to be 51% the scientist's fault, because it would not have happened without him. But also, I guess you could say that about like the American government, or whoever convinced him to make this bomb. Like, it wouldn't have happened without them either. Maybe they forcefully convinced this guy. Maybe they held his family hostage. Who knows? Like, we can't really know what happened. But I mean, let's say the USA, knew they needed the atomic bomb to win World War II, and they said, this is the only guy who could possibly make it. We need to kidnap his family or whatever, or threaten him, blackmail him to make this bomb for us. Then it's different, right? The scientist, I don't know that you can hold him morally responsible. Well, if he chooses the lives of his, 3 family members or whatever over the lives of millions of Japanese people, I can't see that as ethical either. But, I mean, everyone makes decisions like that in their lives. You choose your family over other people, and I think that's fair most of the time, but I'm trying to imagine a scenario where the guy who made the atomic bomb was ethical, but I can't. I just can't. So, this brings me back to the Brian Thompson ethicality idea. Brian Thompson didn't create United Healthcare. He was not the original creator. He was appointed as CEO along the way, and he took the CEO role, and he kind of just got plugged into the company. I don't know how much of the company he changed, if the business model was changed, if they started denying more claims once he got there. I do not know. But in the end, he was the man who had the power to save lives, and he didn't. I know this is dramatic. I know it wasn't his goal. He was just trying to make money. He was trying to be a good business person and make money for the shareholders. Well, making money for the shareholders is not a good enough excuse to kill people. I believe this with my entire fucking body. I hear these people online talk about, well, these businesses, they have a responsibility to their shareholders as well. So you can deny people life-saving health care because you owe it to your shareholders to be a cutthroat business person? I mean, there's a point, right? So Milton Friedman talks about, from a business's perspective, the only ethical thing is profit. Behaving ethically in terms of humans does not exist from the business's perspective. But I find that hard to come to terms with, because let's say Nike just uses all child slave labor, and in tons of other countries, China, Tanzania, whatever, where nobody knows what's really going on. Well, I don't care if the shareholders needed profit and that's the most profitable for the business. It's not ethical and it's not sustainable, because even though that might be the number one best thing for the business, the second people find out about these horrible things that are happening because of this business, could be boycotted, could be criminally prosecuted, and it's not the best for the business at that point. So I wonder how Milton Friedman would respond to that. I don't understand. There's a point where you behave so unethically and so efficiently where you just stop caring about everything in your path. Well, your business won't survive at that point, because people are going to find out what your business did. So at what point do you say, all right, I have to be ethical and sustainable. I have to be able to have a business that lasts and that doesn't just rely on child slave labor until we get caught, because it's the cheapest possible, best thing for the business. And so this relates to Brian Thompson, because it's all right, I don't want to assume that Brian Thompson was a horrible person that was just, horrible person. Let's assume that Brian Thompson was just trying to be a good CEO, and he was, a little over his head, which I find totally possible. You're CEO of a top company in America. You might feel a little overwhelmed over your head, like you got too much going on. All right. But this company is making top profits in the world, United Healthcare, they're making record profits every year, breaking profits. And you know what they're going to say to that is, well, we owe it to our shareholders. Well, what about your policyholders who paid you to protect their health? They are just not as important as the shareholders, I guess, because it's not as profitable for you to care about the policyholders as compared to the shareholders. So, how is that ethical? So now this is bringing me back to at what point do we blame the smart person responsible instead of the people who, like with the atomic bomb, do we blame the man who designed it, who designed the atomic bomb and basically gave it to the American government? We're like, here, you can go drop this on Japan, it'll kill millions. Do we blame the scientist, or do we blame the people who asked him to make it? Like, that's such a difficult question. I guess it depends how he's asked. If he's blackmailed, that changes things. If he's held against his will, that changes things. But if he just offered it up for money, I cannot come to terms with that. And I can't see that man as... I think I should watch Oppenheimer now. I think that's about the bombs in World War II. So I have not watched Oppenheimer. This is probably a pretty surface level understanding from minimal information. But I think it was really interesting to talk about, at the very least, who do you blame? The scientist who created it, or the government that forced the scientist to create it? Or if the government paid him to create it, how does that change things versus the government forced him to make it?